This is Everything Rugby League, a podcast for fans of the sport everywhere.
Can you believe it?
Each week, Keith and Lewis cover news and insights from the game's grassroots to the NRL and around the world.
Good evening on a cold Monday night, or wherever it is you're listening from, but it is fucking freezing here. It has been all day. But alas, another podcast coming to you from Everything Rugby League, the podcast, in the heart of winter here in Australia. Lou, how's things in England? How's your week been?
Bro, so it's not been too bad over this weekend. And of course, Spain basically dominated England, which was great to watch if you are a true Aussie at heart and can't stand the old enemy. So, yeah, topped my weekend off. Daughter's a bit ill, so that's not great, but all in all, and we'll talk about it later, I'm absolutely pumped for Vegas.
Yes, Vegas announced. We will get to that. But first, as always, we'll go through the scoreboard from the weekend that was. And to mix things up a bit, I'll be doing the NRL this time round. So, in no particular order, we had the Broncos just going down to the Dragons, 30-26 in Brisbane. Good crowd there, 34,000. The fact that the Dragons almost lost that game is a little concerning for Dragons fans. But the fact that they won it, obviously, that's the main thing. But, geez, the Broncos came within a whisker of winning that one. We also had the Sharks absolutely demolish the Tigers at Shark Park, 58-6. So I'm sorry, Tigers fans. It doesn't look good. Next, we had the Dolphins in a close one, 36-28. Obviously, defense out the window in that game, but it was an absolutely entertaining game. And we had Gold Coast tipping the Parramatta Eels, although they did look like they were in charge most of the game. Gold Coast clearly the better team there, 24-16. And then last we had Manly smashing the hapless Newcastle Knights, 44-6. Now, what does that actually mean for the ladder? So Melbourne, quite boringly, to be honest, still 4 points ahead. But then it gets a bit more interesting with the Panthers on 28 points and the Roosters really making a run for it. Now in third spot with 26 points, followed by the Sharks. Still managed to just hold on to that top four position, also on 26 points. And then we drop down to the two teams on 24 points, which is the Canterbury Bulldogs in fifth and the Dolphins in sixth. And then Manly now in the eight on 23 points, and then capping out the eight on 22 points is the North Queensland Cowboys. So outside of that, we have four teams within 3 points of North Queensland's 22 points. Those are the Dragons. Surely they'll come into the eight any day now. The Knights, the Raiders, and the Warriors. But on the other side of the world, in your neck of the woods, Lou, what happened in the Super League?
Yeah, so pulled the finger out this week and actually watched a couple games. So the Catalan Dragons 20 over the Salford Red Devils 0. Very disappointing crowd there, 7,500. Hull KR 24 over Hull FC 10. I actually watched a bit of this. There was so many, I wouldn't say there were so many all-ins. It got to the point where I think the final 10 minutes of the first half took about 15 minutes. It was just constant stoppages. Lee over Huddersfield 2016. Castleford over London 34-20. I know you're a bit of an attendance buff, Keith, and that's an awful number for a top league.
I can tell you there was 2,000 there as well. There was maybe 1,000.
Yeah, I need to actually get down there, but Ebbsfleet is not an easy place to head to. Warrington Wolves 30 over Leeds Rhinos 18, and game of the round, Wigan Warriors 16 over St Helens 12. Now, before I get to the ladder, I just wanted to say, because we are obviously NRL biased, but Lewis Dodd, who made a name for himself in the win over the Penrith Panthers last year, he's been dropped. It's now Jack Wellesby and Johnny Lomax in the halves. and they've unearthed they debuted a new talent called Harry Robertson, who looks like a much smaller version of Lomax at fullback. Now I was reading that they basically dropped Dodd to work on a few things. I have no idea what, but does not bode well for a star signing going to the NRL, not playing Super League level. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just trying to bring up the article from Buzz Rothfield. Shimmy, I
If you
can't
know, Buzz
remember.
watches a lot of Super League.
No, but he's first to stick the boot into any Super League signing. Anyway, the article, just for the gist of it, really was a $700,000 flop as a possibility. So just a snippet of one of his gossip columns saying that it's just not looking like the $700,000 a year gamble will pay off. But watching Lewis Dodd play for England, though, he's clearly very, very talented. We steered St Helens to that 13-12 win over the Panthers in Penrith in the World Club Challenge. Now, I understand that was pre-season for NRL, and NRL fans don't hold the World Club Challenge with the same reverence as Super League fans. But I'll tell you what, I wasn't too far into the season for St Helens either, and the fact that they came to Penrith, got the lollies, and then became the top club team in the world that year. There's not many NRL teams that go to Penrith and get the lollies, let alone a Super League team, and that win was steered by Lewis Dodd. So he's going through a poor run of form, but the talents, it doesn't just disappear overnight. So I think under Wayne Bennett, he'll go all right.
It's a tricky one to be bringing a guy out of reserve grade from England to a starting NRL spot. That's probably my only caveat to this whole situation. You've got players like Ollie Gildart. How do you pronounce his name again? The guy who started for Titans.
Oliver Gildart.
Yeah, we know who I'm talking about. I just can't pronounce his name. And there's a number of other guys who've come out, not necessarily done that well, but I think it's not a good sign. I think in order to come into the NRL, you really have to be at the peak of your powers, like a John Bateman, an Elliot Whitehead. Who else is that? Who else come over from the Super League? Because there's guys who win Man of Steel and come back and don't do that well, like Hastings. Hastings going okay, but you're asking a guy literally, he's going to be playing not even semi-pro footy now. He's going to be like, at least in New South Wales Cup, that's semi-pro, right? I don't know what the Super League reserves is. I don't even think every team has a reserve from what I gather. So this is really not a good sign. You'd hope that he breaks his way back in, but I've always felt Wellesby was a better halves player anyway. So sort of, and Lomax has obviously been in the halves for a long time. So whether he's actually going to break it back into the starting lineup is, maybe I'm out of my depth when it comes to talking about Super League, but I switched it on hoping to watch him, and I was going, where is he? Where's he gone? Anyways, the ladder as well, which is why it's not looking great for a few teams in Super League, but Warriors way out in front. Wolves, Hull KR, second and third, joint on 24 points. Then you've got three teams on 22 points, St Helens, Dragons, and Salford Red Devils. So there is, and unfortunately Leeds is just outside the 8. They're going to need to get some wins up, and then from there, it's the tale of Super League where you've just got too big of a gap. Actually, before we move on from Super League, because I know that we love talking about the Super League, there was a kid a few years ago, Jake Truman. I had huge raps on him. He was at Castle for Tigers, and he made the Great Britain squad. Had a few down years, and now at Hull. He played okay against Hull KR, but I think that's the point when you've got young halves coming in, Lewis Dodd, Jake Truman, unless they get that sustained success, so it's hard to then say that they're going to be superstars for a long period of time. I can only think of, say, someone like George Williams, who's been able to maintain his form somewhat. It's such a tough position that, young half hopefully does well in the NRL, but man, it's going to be a tough few months, probably rookie year for him, as in Lewis Dodd.
Yeah, I think any backs that come from the Super League, Englishmen, or Frenchmen for that matter, but obviously predominantly Englishmen,
Dom Young.
seem to struggle a hell of a lot more than the forwards. Yeah, you have Dom Young's probably the biggest success that comes to mind. George Williams as well, in recent times, that is. But you got to look at that. Callum Watkins was an absolute superstar for England and in the Super League. Huddersfield, I think. Oh no, sorry, Leeds. And then you had, Ryan Hall, one of the greatest English wingers of all time, but he was playing reserve grade for the Roosters. Zach Hardiker for the Panthers was playing reserve grade. These were genuinely big names in the Super League, and they came to the NRL and unfortunately just couldn't crack it. Oliver Gildart is obviously one of them. So probably more often than not, the backs fail to gain real traction once they arrive in the NRL. But that's starting to change with the likes of Dom Young, of course. The forwards, on the other hand, a hell of a lot more successful. James Graham, obviously the Burgess brothers, Elliot Whitehead. There's a few others in there that come to mind. But just my last thoughts, John Bateman, except for the Tigers. My last thoughts on the English game, shout out to Wakefield, who I believe have won 15 from 15. So it's quite evident that they're a better team than London, despite the fact that London's in the Super League. And I haven't been a fan of promotion or relegation in English Rugby League ever, really. And this just highlights, the issues with it. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to side with London because, the team in the big smoke compared to a small town in the north of England, one amongst many, the reality is that the quality and finances of the club, etc., there's a hell of a lot more to Wakefield than what there is London. But let's move on to Las Vegas. So we touched on briefly last week. We have the Raiders, Canberra that is, hosting the Warriors, who I'm confident will take the most fans to Vegas. We also have a Super League game, Wigan versus Warrington. We've got Australia versus England in the women's game. And we've got Penrith hosting Cronulla Sharks whilst Penrith's new stadium is being built. So they'll be playing out at Parramatta all year next year. So this is a perfect year for them to host a game in Vegas. And for once, speaking as an Aussie here, for once it's not us being shafted with the times in terms of the schedule in our country. I can tell you that the UK times for these games are Wigan versus Warrington, 9:30 at night, UK time. Canberra versus New Zealand is at midnight. Australia versus England is at 2 a.m. And Penrith versus Cronulla is at 4:30 a.m. Now, they're times that Australians are used to, especially Formula One fans. But it's good to see England get some, for once, a taste of what we usually have to endure. But you booked your flights to Vegas yet?
Hey, if you've got any British listeners or UK-based listeners, I was looking at the flight a day before the date announcement. So they'd announced the teams. It was about 500 quid. The day after I looked at it, they announced it, the teams and the date. It shot up to 700 plus. So 250 quid just off the announcement. There's a lot of people, a lot of pommies coming over, and it's great to see. And I am absolutely pumped up because we've got New Zealand, so another country, and England, and Australia. We've got the three countries all going to another country to play rugby league, and there's going to be a big crowd. It's going to draw a lot of eyeballs. What's not to like about it? But I'm just saying I'm absolutely pumped. Matt, you've been there before, so tell the listeners, what do you recommend? What do you recommend to avoid as well for 2025? Because I know you're going as well.
Yeah, I can speak predominantly from an Australian traveller's point of view, but obviously a lot of this overlaps with our English travel. There's about 4,000 English travelling fans there in Vegas last year, and you could really see them out in numbers. For me, sort of what to expect, how much to budget for, etc. I can tell you probably like the perfect amount of time in Vegas in my experience now, I've been there a couple of times, is 4 nights. You can go 5 nights. 5 nights is a lot of time in Vegas because it's an intense experience. It's not like a typical holiday where you relax. You're punting all the time. There's lots to do. It's high octane. There's a lot of lights. It's an absolutely amazing experience. Now there's not usually flights that go direct from Sydney to Vegas, and I assume direct from Brisbane to Vegas either. Although I know that there's special flights put on for this event, but they might be part of, the Tripper deal kind of partnership that the NRL has. So most people go via Los Angeles, LAX, and then catch a connecting flight or even a bus. I ran into Josh Morris as we were waiting for a coffee at the cafe in LAX last year. And I'm like, how are you getting to Vegas? And he's like, oh, we're all catching a coach. It's going to be a pretty good ride. We've got some roadies. So it's a 4-hour drive from LAX to the heart of Las Vegas. That is an option. Alternatively, we just flew Southwest Airlines. I think it was like $50 or something like that. Something really cheap because the flight was like, I don't know, half an hour, something like that, something really quick as a flight. And it's such a sort of, there's flights like multiple flights per hour kind of thing. It's almost like catching a bus. There's that many Southwestern flights. It's a budget airline. The cheapest carrier out there is Fiji Airways. That's about $1,400 plus any sundries like seat selection. You want extra leg room, all that kind of stuff. But the base airfare is around about $1,400. It takes 4 hours to get to Suva, and then I think another 7 odd hours to LAX or something like that. So look, it is a long, long day. But the other carriers that fly to LAX will charge around about $2,000. This is return prices that I'm quoting here. So if you're prepared to pay a couple of grand, you can go with sort of Qantas and anyone else that goes Sydney to LAX or Brisbane to LAX. Actually, when you're in Vegas, the stadium is all it's made out to be, 3 billion Australian dollars. It is absolutely amazing. Ticket prices aren't as cheap as what they'll have you believe. And the reason being is the NRL was right when they said they offered $19 US tickets for sort of behind the post and some of the less desirable seats. But once you take into account the state ticket fees, the ticketing agency itself, I think the base price of our ticket was maybe like $130 US or something like that. Actually, maybe less than that, about $90 US. But by the time we ended up paying all those fees, it was 400 Australian dollars each. Granted, they were great seats, but also unless you're part of sort of that hospitality package or the Tripper deal partnership that the NRL has, the best seats you're going to get by just going on the website Ticketmaster and purchasing them yourselves. The best you're going to get is just outside the 40-meter line either side. So halfway tickets actually really hard to get hold of unless you're part of a package or part of a hospitality experience. But if there's one event that I saw the most former NRL celebrities, media celebrities, etc. at, it was, apart from the actual launch in Old Town, that is, it was the Dueling Pianos at New York. I saw Matty Johns there, Alan Langer. There was just the whole town was full of Aussies when I went. It's only going to be bigger and better this year. Even speaking about it, I am pumped. It's going to be fucking awesome. You pumped for it, surely?
Well, I think I must have been one of the first to book a flight over there. I had to have been. I must have been in the top 20 in the UK. I was just that excited. I've been hitting up all anyone I know that likes rugby league from Australia to come along. Yeah, very useful tips. I will say I've had a quick look on the NRL website. There's actually a few of their packages already sold out. So get on board. It's going to be a great occasion. Huge if you're an NRL fan. For me, it's a long day of footy, but there's so much to do. I'm looking forward to hopefully Mariah Carey as well. That should be good if she's still got her residency out there. But
sure,
what's the process? And I'm probably going to leave it to you. So you just basically show up. What do you recommend watching all the games or dropping in and out? It's a long day, man. Like like even a Super Saturday, you've got to drop out for a little bit. You've got to have a breather. Or am I talking shit?
No, you're right. 4 games is a big ask. They're not like directly back to back to back to back. There is a small break between a couple of them. But the good thing is that the Allegiant Stadium isn't too far from the actual casinos. All the casinos around that area, like the Luxor, for example, they're all linked. So you can just walk, on the ground floor between them all. And the only time that you're actually outside when you're walking to the stadium is when you go across the bridge. Now, last year that bridge was actually quite hard to walk up because there was over 100 kilometers per hour winds. The worst winds in Las Vegas since the 1980s or something like that was game day. So that kept any people that are locals or whatever just wanting to see the stadium. Because keep in mind, it is still a very new stadium, and any event there still charges locals a couple of $100. So if you want to see LA Raiders, you're paying well in excess of that. But even other sports teams that might play there as like a one-off event, there's no way you can pick up tickets for $19 US. Even, I know I just spoke about the booking fees and stuff like that. So this was actually an opportunity for locals that haven't been to the stadium yet. This was, I think I'm right here, the cheapest event that they could pay for to actually get into the stadium and take a look around, which is pretty incredible. But the point is, you go there, maybe you want to miss a game because you're not interested, whatever. You can just walk back to the casinos. They're all right there. It's not far at all. It's not out of town or anything like that. You don't need to catch a bus or a train or Uber or whatever. You just walk back to the Luxor or wherever you're hanging out.
Bro, bring it on, honestly. And if the Raiders lose, I guess my interest in the whole weekend significantly goes down. And same with you with a Y, I'm guessing. But honestly, I can't wait to just mix it up with everyone. There's just going to be so many people out there that are there for a good time. Yeah, can't wait. Did you have any tips on nightlife? Very quickly, what did you get up to?
I actually didn't go to a nightclub. I had tickets from like a friend of a friend for the 4 of us. And then we just went so hard with like just the casinos and the bars and the casinos for the 3 nights preceding that. They were just like, it got to like, I don't know, 11 p.m. I'm like, nah, fuck this. Like, I'll just stay in here. Because the thing is, like, call me an old man, but I actually love my whiskey and cigars. And that same night I was supposed to go to the nightclub, we actually discovered inside the Paris casino, so the one with the Eiffel Tower out the front, a cigar shop, and with the best cigar collection I've ever seen for great prices, like $12 US for like something, a cigar that'd be like at least 45 here in Australia. And they cut it for you, they light it for you, and then you just walk through to the bar that's right next door of it. And it's like cliche with those button back leather single seat couches, and you sit there like a fucking king, smoking your cigar, drinking fine whiskey. And I'm like, this is the life. I'm good for a few hours here. So it is something for everybody. Just depends what you're into. In terms of accommodation, a lot of people are going to go, and it's going to be a boys' trip for a lot of people. So I know that the Aria, I can speak for myself. I know that the Aria has great rates for rooms with 2 queen beds in them. Actually, that is by far the cheapest major casino that I found was the Aria. I can't remember exactly how much, but it wasn't too bad in comparison to the Bellagio and Caesar's Palace, etc. So there are some reasonably priced casinos for accommodation if you look around. Aria being one of them.
Yeah, so if you wanna catch up with Keith, you just circle this cigar and whiskey bar.
In the
Pull
Paris.
up there, hopefully after a Warriors loss.
Actually, a tip if you do that, your clothes stink and you just can't get them out unless you find a dry cleaners, which I assume you're not doing because people only go for 3 or 4 nights. So if you're planning on doing that, just bring a lot of t-shirts because there's no getting that stench out of your clothes. Bring more than 1 pair of pants.
Fantastic.
Which I did for the record. Bring more than 1 pair of pants. Hoover Dam, disappointment. Don't bother. It's shit. Telling the people that it's not worth the drive out. Overrated. Just stay in Vegas. Maybe Grand Canyon. Actually, the helicopter tickets to the Grand Canyon, not too bad. You land at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. You get some champagne and a picnic, and I think it's about $500 US. So, look, it's not cheap. Don't get me wrong, but if you're after like sort of a once in a lifetime style experience, you can get a helicopter, and then sort of drops you at the bottom of the canyon, wine provided, that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty cool experience.
And there's something for everyone, I guess is the way to put it. And I hope the NRL listens to our 10-minute sales pitch on why you should be going to Vegas and should compensate us accordingly. Maybe a free trip out there as well. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. Actually, we can whet our appetite this Friday night because I think the Raiders are playing the Warriors.
God, that's going to be an awful game for the Raiders, but yeah.
I know, like, for obviously no one can see me, but Lewis can see me, and I'm so rugged up right now. I've got a beanie on, and I went for my coffee at about 6:15 this morning, and I looked at my phone. It's 5 degrees outside, but it's not like in the Northern Hemisphere where it's consistently cold like throughout the year. There's insulation in the places where you live, Lou. There's no insulation. Like, the insulation here is terrible in Australia. So when it hits single digits, you just like, it's teeth shattering. And I looked at weather for Canberra on Friday night. I think it's going to be 4 degrees or something like that when they're playing. Fuck that. It doesn't even hit double digits the entire day on Friday at Canberra. It's a maximum of 9 degrees. And then the next day's raining with -1 through to 10.
I mean, we could talk at length about Vegas, and we could talk at length about how much fun we're going to have, but we can save that for another. We could bring it up again next week. But I just wanted to quickly chat to you because last week the Raiders narrowly lost to the Knights, and let's be honest, that was appalling against the Seagulls. The Seagulls without Daly Cherry Evans, the Knights without Kalen Ponga and Bradman Best, but they did have your favourite Jackson Hastings, so you would have thought that would have done
Quality
something.
player.
Man of Steel. Was he Man of Steel?
And great.
Yes, Man of Steel in a very mid-tier club. And I did watch this game. It was absolutely disgraceful from the Knights. They were just... Jason Saab looked like he was playing against under-10s. So I guess my question to you is, what's the issue? Is it over-reliance on a single player? Is it poor coaching? Is it bad management on the playing roster? Because a number have been told that they are free to leave. So the Saifidi brothers, I believe, are one of them, two of them. They've been told, feel free to find another club. And when that happens, it's like Projector from Ricky Stewart. The whole playing roster just quits on you. Does the Knights need a Dally M style player just to scrape the 8? And that's a disgusting way to build a club. What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, obviously KP is the reigning Dally M after he absolutely mugged it from Sean Johnson last year. But yeah, I think the answer to the Newcastle problem is a bit of it that you just said. I worry about Kalen Ponga's ability to replicate what he offers in every single game. It kind of reminds me of Benji Marshall back in sort of the 05 Tigers. He had that amazing year. He had the support of Scott Prince as well, which is not said often enough. But ultimately, throughout the longevity of his career, you can't replicate that every single game. That sort of mercurial style of play, you might be able to go on runs like he did last year, or for example, like Jared Hayne did in 2009. But to do it over the course of 10 years and take your team to regularly challenge for a premiership, I don't think Kalen Ponga, at least the style that he currently plays in, and I still worry about it, the size as well. I just don't think he's that kind of player, which leads me to believe that they probably need I don't know whether it be a half or just a combination of other players around him that are really consistent style of player. Now, like bias as a Warriors fan, but someone that came from there who actually met that criteria in my mind was, or at least the way he's playing now, Mitch Barnett. Those kind of players. But the biggest problem for me is I just don't rate Adam O'Brien. I think he's at best a sort of John Cartwright, Neil Henry style coach. And I know you rate Neil Henry higher than what I did, so I'll stick with the John Cartwright for the sake of getting across what I'm trying to say here. I just can never see him taking that squad, top four, then premiership contention. They were so close to signing Des Hasler. If they got Des Hasler, I reckon that club will be in a hell of a lot better place. So I think I don't rate the coach. And for the record, this is going to sound weird because he made a grand final last year, and I said this last year. I don't rate Kevin Walters as a coach either. There's coaches where you can tell they're just, I don't know, something missing. What do you think? What's wrong with Newcastle? Is it easily fixed or is it longer term?
I think every coach has their cycle. And Parramatta, for example, they recognise that their coach got everything they could out of them, and it was time for a change. And I think maybe Adam O'Brien, I'm not as harsh on him as some. I did remember there was an interview of Connor Watson, who's become an Origin player now, when he's returned to the Roosters, and he didn't have the most fondest memories of Adam O'Brien's pre-seasons, for example. And it's all well and good to have that hard-ass sort of approach, if that makes sense. But when it doesn't work, you have to sort of tailor it to your squad. And I think Newcastle, maybe they got that lightning in a bottle with Kalen Ponga last year. This year, they're sort of playing pre-Kalen Ponga, Dally M. And it's a shame because a few weeks ago, I thought, okay, you've got a really good young squad here. And they've sort of fallen apart. They've got a quality roster. They've honestly got a really strong side. So, yeah, it's unfortunately the night just looked horrible. There's nothing to be pleased about with yesterday. And yeah, maybe coaching is probably issue number one. Issue number two is, and again, I completely agree with you, when you're over reliant on such a magic player like your Jared Hayne, is it Jared Hayne 09? And a Benny Barber of 2012, I think, you're relying on a guy to just create magic every week. And it's not, look at all the teams that have won premiership. They're not one man bands. They're all across the board too good, too strong, like Penrith, Melbourne, those style of squads where they haven't relied on a single player to win them a competition. The Knights have gone the opposite route, which is just not smart.
Yeah, and you'd argue that the Roosters probably fit that bill where, I mean, is it Kieran Walker? Yeah, I mean, in the conversation for an Origin style half, but the reality is never played Origin, I don't think, unless Kieran did end up making his debut. But the point is, not regular Origin players. Yeah, but then they got Joey Manu. James Tedesco is obviously one of the real stars. Jared Ray Hargraves, Joseph Suaalii, etc. So the quality across the park. So definitely agree. All right, well, we are running out of time, so let's get a quick fire review of your tips. So on Friday, no Thursday night game this round, but still seven games, which is good. We've got Canberra hosting the Warriors. Who have you got for this?
Warriors.
I'm going to go the Raiders then. Just I don't know. I don't have a good idea. All right, South Sydney, Latrellis against the Tigers.
Still go South. Did we both pick Tigers last week? I really regret that.
No, I played it safe with the Storm, I must say. Next, we got Newcastle hosting the Broncos.
Broncos.
Yeah, you got to go Broncos for that one. Even though the Broncos are terribly out of form. Melbourne, this is a cracker, actually. Didn't realize this was on Saturday night. Storm hosting the Roosters.
Yep, the game of the round, isn't it? It's you have to go Roosters. When's Munster back?
I don't know. I'll go Roosters as well. Rich vein of form. But yeah, obviously it could go either way, that one. This one's a good one as well. Penrith hosting the Dolphins.
Oh, you'd have to go Penrith. Yeah, I mean the Dolphins, they're doing okay, but I mean they're doing great, but yeah, Panthers will be too good for them.
And Cleary will be back, maybe. You just look at this game, and it's one that Wayne Bennett, he'll get up for. He'll be getting in their ears. There's certain games that Wayne Bennett, and last week was one of them because he's going to Souths, and there's been accusations of coaching two teams at the same time on the down low. You just knew that there's games that mean more than others to Wayne Bennett. So I'll be curious to see how the Dolphins go on that one. Second last game of the round, Sunday 4:00. We've got Manly versus Gold Coast. Battle of the Beaches.
Shout out the Gold Coast Titans, man. I was hoping we'd have enough time to talk about them very briefly. Have they not turned it around or what? They were so good, except for Brimson deciding to really mix it up and make a few errors. But I like AJ Brimson, he's a good player. But the Titans, I think they've turned it around. They've obviously pissed off Fafita sufficiently enough to get him playing well again. And Kieran Foran is actually playing really well. Like I really like how he's been giving the Titans some structure. Des knows how to coach him. Yeah, I expect the Titans to win, and it's a revenge game, as you just pointed out with Bennett. This is a revenge game for Des.
Oh, good point. I'm gonna play it safe and go to the Seagulls just because I don't like. I still have no trust in the Titans when they travel to Sydney. So for that reason, I'm going to go Manly. But yeah, that's a great point. Desi's up against the club that sued him, or he sued. Sorry. Yeah, well, that'll add some fire to it. Lastly, game of the round. Last game of the round, I should say. North Queensland hosting the Bulldogs, although it is a good game. Who have you got there?
Yeah, I think the Dogs. Actually, no, you know what? I'll go Cowboys. I think the Dogs traveling, and they've got a few guys that are playing Origin, right? Like Stephen Crichton. Is Burton getting caught up maybe? So yeah, they'll have a few battered and bruised, and the Cowboys at home usually pretty tough to beat. Who have you got?
I hope the Cowboys. So I'll go the Cowboys for no other reason, no rational reason whatsoever. So I'll go the Cowboys. Yeah. All right. Well, that seems like a good place to leave it. As always, we will see you next Monday night. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Everything Rugby League. If you like this episode, give the show a follow and leave a review. For more news and insights, follow us on Facebook or head to everythingrugbyleague.com.